I'm just comfortable in the Triangle Club. I just like the people, and they change faces all the time, but I'm comfortable there. I'll tell you what kind of people are there at the Triangle Club. I had a guy come up to me that had a breath that would have fried a chicken, and he said, in 32 more days, I'm going to get a 30-day chip. I took a 60-day chip and a 5-year cake on the same night. And he did use a different name both times, though. And so I told my wife, we just went through a time warp, that? But I think he's out of Norwalk now. But I'm comfortable there, and I keep going back. They call that Triangle Club the world's largest gas chamber. They do have a no smoking chair, I think, and I see what I I told you wasn't going to quote me on anything. I couldn't share when I got to AA. I got to AA, I was 25 years old, and everybody in AA, children were my age, and I felt like the mascot, and everybody had drank for 40 years and stole locomotives, that kind of story, and they were. Another thing too, they were what's called pure alcoholics, and I was an impure alcoholic. I had a program before I got to AA. It was called "Take Something, You'll Feel Better," and I never felt good sober. I sort of hated sobriety. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't like that feeling, It was always rotten and crooked and gloomy and gray, and it was not very nice. So I was always taking something. I go to people's homes, go in the bathroom, look in the medicine cabinet, and see what was on tap for that night, And if that little vial said take one every 4 hours for pain, that's the one I ripped off, I had a lot of pain and I didn't know it. But in fact, I used to anticipate pain. I knew pain was just around the corner, and so I headed it off, I tell you that. I would still be out there. I wouldn't be here tonight, if my program, Take Something You'll Feel Better, was still working. There's no way that I would have given up on my program because I liked it a whole lot. And, but you know what? It sort of wasn't working anymore. I imagine most of us people in here had the same story, I was the guy laying face down yelling, "Let's get high." I wasn't going any place anymore, and yet I was going to keep doing it. And that's the insanity of alcoholism. I had I couldn't share, and but I had no place else to go. I was like a cornered rat, and I didn't want to be here, and I thought you people were all lamos, and and I was cool. That's another bad thing that I had going for me. I was cool, and that'll kill you dead, boy, I tell you. And so I sat against a wall, and I wouldn't share, couldn't share, and eventually kept getting drunk, and eventually came a time where I had to share. I had to say something, and whether it was wrong or right or whatever, I had to say something, and that's what this program's all about. I really believe, like what's happened here already, the people as they met one another, and the hugs and the sharing, and how you doing, and we tell one another about ourselves. I couldn't do that because, first of all, it was none of your business, and Second of all, if I told you about myself, you wouldn't like me. You know, I was sort of a sleazy guy. So I didn't share, and I kept getting drunk. And but I did, when I started to share, I had such a short time out there. I was like less than 10 years. And I had to dramatize the hell out of my little story, you know. And anyway, so here's how it sort of went, you know. I embellished it every chance I get, but I was born to an Irish Catholic family. I know you thought I was Portuguese, I'm sure, but I come from a family that drinks. My wife is in the program. She comes from a family that don't drink, so that wasn't the excuse. The family that I come from, when they drank, they could remember a resentment back to the 17th century, you know. They was always talking about invading Canada or something, I don't know, but anyway, but they used to get a little bit rambunctious, you know, and nowadays they call it violence, but we used to call Christmas Eve Stomp the Tree Night, you know, and Mother's Day was a biggie. I've seen people get hurt bad on Mother's Day. You know? And funerals, you didn't know if you were going to bury one or three or what, you know, but you know, I reacted to it in a way, I'm sure, because I didn't realize it, but my whole life was fearful. I was just really a scaredy cat, you know. I'd have sun go behind the clouds and I'd get bummed out. I'd really, my whole life, I know now why I felt so good loaded, you know, because I wasn't fearful when I was loaded. But well, when I was sober, I was really, I wanted to crawl in a hole and pull it in after me, you know. Everything scared me. But the family I come from, there was 5 kids, and I had the distinction in my family of being a bedwetter. Oh man, that makes you feel like a champ. I don't know what, 5 kids, and I'm the bedwetter. I was always being called up on the carpet, you know, and for that, and then I had the nightmares. I had the damn nightmares, and I was goofy. That's what it was. And I always wondered. I always knew I was goofy too. That's a bad thing about being goofy, and you know it. You know. So I knew you people was all right, and I wasn't. So I had to keep you from finding out I was goofy. So, but I always rationalized. I had a thing happen to me when I was a little guy. I was going up to in the back of a car. My mom was heading up there, and she had me in the car, no one else. I guess I screwed up, and she was keeping an eye on me. And I was only about 4 or 5, and I hadn't started school yet, I know. And she was driving this friend's car, and I said, "Mom, I want to open up the window." And she said, "Don't open the window up." And it was hot back there, and I said, "I want to open up the window." She said, "Don't open the damn window." And so I opened the door, and I was it was a car where the doors opened up into the wind, and when the wind caught that door, it took the door and me, and I become airborne, and I went down the road on my head like a pogo stick, and my mom said she couldn't look back. She knew she'd just see a little bundle of rags back there, and so she pulled over to the side of the road and was sobbing, and her friend said, "Don't cry, here comes that little bastard running like hell," you know. And I knew I had screwed up again, you know, and and I thought they were leaving me, and I was really taken off after that car, but anyway, it caved in the back of my head, and so I knew then that I was goofy, you know, because my head was caved in, and but I had a lot of stuff like that. I always blamed it on something. I knew something was wrong, but I kept all this stuff. I didn't tell anybody about it, Everything that ever happened to me, I stored it, you know. I heard a speaker one time in Orange County. He was talking about the only time I ever resent having to go to an AA meeting when there's something on television, if it's a nature program. I just dig that Channel 28, anything that has to do with animals. I can watch a whole hour-long program on the sex life of an earthworm. So I must have missed this one program because this guy was talking about a beetle over in Africa that it's called the dung beetle. This thing goes and just collects dung. A little beetle, but it keeps collecting dung. It keeps pushing this big ball of dung ahead of it. And pretty soon that ball of dung is so big, maybe 1,000 times bigger than the beetle, it can't push it any further. It crawls inside of it and makes its home there. That was my life. I had been doing that, collecting and collecting and collecting, and so when I got to AA, I had to share. But anyway, I had to start getting rid of you know what. But I told you I was Irish Catholic, and we went to Mass every Sunday morning, and my dad was hungover every Sunday morning, but he drank daily except Sunday morning he didn't drink. And my dad was dangerous on Sunday morning, and but I was supposed to make my first Holy Communion. I know there's another Catholic in AA. I met him in Fullerton one night, but anyway, the rules were that I was supposed to. I'd studied the catechism and everything, and I was. First Holy Communion, this was the starting time for a Catholic. My brother had already done it. My sisters would follow. But I, on the way to church, I reached down alongside the seat and I found a peanut. And no big deal, but I ate the peanut. And then I got to thinking, they've been telling me for months, it seemed like forever, I was not supposed to eat anything. I was supposed to fast from midnight on. That was the rules. In fact, if I got thirsty, I was just supposed to touch my lips with a wet handkerchief. I wasn't supposed to drink anything either. So I ate that peanut, and what to do, you know. So I was not about to tell my dad. He would have used my head for a soccer ball. So I went ahead and I walked down the aisle. I was afraid to tell anybody that I'd done that. I walked down the aisle and received the sacrament. And when I did that, I committed a mortal sin. That's as high as you can go in the Catholic Church. And according to the Catechism, mortal sins were things like murder, rape, and adultery. I was only 6 years old. I'd already hit the big time. I didn't even know how to do those things. But you know, I never told anybody about that peanut till I got to AA. I never found anybody I could trust. And then when I told you about the peanut, you shared back with me. That's what I love about this program, is that we share back and forth. A little Mexican girl told me she ate a tamale before communion. And then there was a guy over in Woodland Hills said he had a jelly bean on Easter Sunday. I never sunk that low. And then, hey, don't laugh. A bunch of you Catholics had hot dogs on Friday. You know who you are. I'm not going to point you out. But I mean, that's what I was stuck with, and I collected all that stuff. And I know now why I felt better when I was drunk. But I didn't start getting drunk when I was 3 or 4 or anything. I think the first time I got drunk was I was around a family that kept whiskey on the sink and beer in the fridge, but I didn't have any big thirst then. But I got drunk when I was 16 years old, and I'd gone to sea. I was scared out of my wits. I told you I was frightened to death anyhow, and I'd gone from high school onto tankers, and And I know now I was just frightened out of my wits. But um, the big sailors were drinking, and I wanted to be one of them, and I drank, and I got drunk, and first time I got drunk, I cried, and that set the pattern. I was a real weeping Willie of a drunk, you know. My family used to hate to see me come around. I could kill off a party in 15 minutes, you know. But I had but then, I'd gotten a raw deal. I was a depressed person, drinking a depressant, trying to get over my depression, you know. And I got, when I got into the merchant marine, I was on tankers always. I never was on a cargo ship. And of course, tankers were in and out of that Persian Gulf all the time. And we had what they called a shuttle run from Japan into Ras Al Khaimah, where they just got through fighting that war. And you know why that war ended so quick? There's no booze over there. Everybody was thirsty as hell, I know, but they had hashies and hubbly-bubbly pipes. And I'll tell you, I'll guarantee you this, you could be the biggest jerk in the world, and you start smoking dope and you'll get cool immediately. I got super cool, you know. I was started wearing dark glasses at nighttime, and took an avid interest in the music. I was buying records and going to jam sessions, and it was really awesome. I couldn't believe it. I was really with it, you know, and we was really cool, you know. These guys are running around with us always saying, "What's happening?" And I said, "I don't know what's happening." No one knew what was happening, but we was cool, you know. Actually, I was not cool. I'd never learned how to roll a joint. Can you believe it? I used to roll a joint, looked like a Tootsie Pop. And once the end burned off, the charge would fall out on the floor, you know. And it's hard looking cool with the burning zigzag paper hanging out of your mouth. What's happening, right? I was a jerk. That's what I was. I never did. People give me all kinds of stuff to take, you know, and I never did ask them, will this stuff possibly hurt my liver? Will this stuff cause irreversible brain damage? And I just took it, you know. I one time scored some gum opium. I didn't know how to use it, so I ate it. And that ain't the way you use it, you know. I could have barfed over this building. That I was sick. And in case anybody's interested, you're supposed to smoke that stuff. But anyway, I was doomed. You know, with the kind of thinking I had, I was doomed. Like playing Russian roulette with the whole cylinder loaded and a pocket full of bullets in case there's a misfire. I didn't have a chance. I got tried everything and thought I was having fun, and the stuff was perfect for me. I was like a pilot light waiting for someone to put some fuel on it, because once I got a hold of anything, everything was okay, you know. And but it wasn't okay, and I had the illusion that it was great, but it wasn't great, and I was doomed. I got when I was about 19 years old, I tied up my arm first time, and then I went into my sleepwalking phase of my life. Most of the time sick, and then when I was loaded, a cigarette had burned through my fingers and I wouldn't feel it. That's comatose, but that's what I had for myself. And I was used to go home to my mother, and I'd be real sick, and I'd run out of money and everything else, and I'd stay sick and drink cough medicine. I drank a lot of cough medicine, and trying to get some sleep, and but then I would start up again, and my brother was using too. I got into an accident that interrupted my career as a dope fiend. I was always a lightweight too. I mean, everybody else was, you hear them shooting it out with the cops and writing millions of dollars worth of bad checks. My ammo was stealing spare tires, so you're never going to go to federal penitentiary for doing that. But I got into this accident. I always had the feeling, and I bet you a lot of people in here had the same feeling, that if I could ever quit drinking, I'd be all right. That I would be a good person, which might be true. But I was a sick person. Without this program, if just take the drinking away from me, I was a goner, So I got this accident. I'd signed articles for a year. I was going to get away from all you rotten people that make me do these things. And but I didn't make the trip. I had taken my last fix, and going to sea and cleaning up out there is like in the county jail. I mean, that's bad news. But I knew I couldn't get anything, and I was going to do it. But I didn't make the trip. I hit this truck head on, and I was going pretty fast, I'm sure. And he was coming off Terminal Island, and he tried to get away from me. I was in his lane, and he said later on in court that my head was resting on the steering wheel. I was taking a nap, and I'm hit that dual behind the tractor, tore them out, went underneath the bed, and I came back out again. My car was only like 2 foot tall, and I'm glad I was asleep, something like that. That could have scared the hell out of me, But I got put into the Harbor General Hospital, and merchant seaman is considered a ward of the federal government, and most of the men that were in that ward had bad accidents and were merchant seamen. And I had the guys in there were always screaming for pain shots, and something had happened. It had already happened, but from now on, my days were going to be preoccupied with taking something. No day was right unless I took something. I had to supplement whatever I had with something to have a good day, and to have a pain-free day, And them guys were all yelling for pain shots. I was yelling for pain shots. I was a guy yelling out, "Hey, nurse, what about my sleeping pill?" She said, "For God's sakes, it's only 9 in the morning." Yeah, but don't forget, But I left the hospital, and I was too beat up. I couldn't steal spare tires anymore. I was having a hard time walking, and but I started to drink, and the word went through my family that I had returned to normal, and I was normal for about 5 more years before you people caught up with me, and that's the sad thing about the addict and the alcoholic and the addict, is my brother died that way. And I used to drink with him, and he drank. We got drunk together, and we used together. We smoked dope together. But, he had the idea that when he wasn't using, that it was all right to drink. And luckily for me, I found out that isn't right. I started drinking for sleep. And I could sleep, have that kind of sleep, 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, and got married, and tried to have some kind of a normal life, And my wife come from an alcoholic family, and she put up with it, drinking daily. Every day I'd down to the liquor store. Had a job, and my wife gave me a little girl, and I tried to have what people talk about as a normal life. My life wasn't normal. Something was gone. Something was empty. I didn't have what it took to. The only time I felt normal was when I loaded, and I started getting real sick. I'd always been a barfer. Now, my taking more physical exercise was crawling on my hands and knees into the bathroom, doing chin-ups on the toilet bowl. yelling for Ralph, And I'd do this for about, seemed like for 100 years, and then I'd finally collapse on that cold bathroom floor and try to regroup, and my wife would come in and look down at her hero, and I was laying there in a pair of shorts, and she'd say, "Why do you do this to yourself?" Never had a snappy answer for her, I know that. Could have told her I didn't want to miss out on all that fun I was having, But, I was going to keep doing it. And this was something that I believed that was important in my sobriety. Two things, and I didn't think they're important. Maybe I wasn't even listening when they told me this. But one, I had a loving God. Now, that one was hard for me to digest. I was so spooked out with religion that I scared to death of God. And the other one is that I had a disease. And I come into AA in October 1956. And sometime in 1956, American Medical Association said that alcoholism is a disease. And they were talking that way. And they told me that. And they said I had a disease, and it was two parts: physical allergy, which I still got now, and never got rid of that, and the mental obsession. The mental obsession is the thing that is one of the reasons I'm here tonight, and one of the reasons I'm at meetings almost every night, and one of the reasons I keep doing the things that I did when I first got here. Maybe not to the degree, but still I keep doing them because I know that obsession to drink can visit me again. I know I have no guarantee that I can't or won't get drunk again. If I left here tonight after you people hearing my story, and I drank again, every one of you people would say, "That guy not eating a Waldorf salad, he should never drink," and that would be the insanity of alcoholism. The insanity is my emotions. I have too much pain, physical, mental, or emotional, and I drink to kill that pain. My logical mind says, "Don't drink, Dodo, it's tearing your buns off." But, my emotions always overrule my logic. And my emotions would say, "Take something. You feel terrible, You'll feel better, Take care of yourself." And so I'd be at the medicine cabinet or, the last drinking that I did, I was drinking sweet wine. It was called Cucamonga Pride. And a guy told me one time, he said, "That crap you're drinking, never seen a grape." He said they press that grape, they get about the fifth press, they get the cognacs, the brandies and everything. And he said then the last press, the seeds, the stems, the skins, and whatever else fell into it meanwhile. And he said that's Cucamonga Pride. And he said they zing it with ether to get the alcohol content up. And, folks, I never did drink for flavor. I know you hear people in AA say they smack their lips over some kind of a drink, but I used to drink a lot of cough medicine. Have you ever drank turpentine hydrate? It tastes like rotten oranges. And I drank so much turpentine hydrate I haven't coughed for 34 years. I burned out my cougher. But this is the kind of drinking I was doing. And so I got to watch. I got to be vigilant on taking stuff. I got to be real careful. I read all the labels, and I make sure when people hand me something, I had, my wife was with me, and we was on a Caribbean cruise, and it was a lot of boozers on there, and we had 3 or 4 days out there, and then one day we left one of those beautiful harbors in Virgin Islands in Charlotte Armley or something, and the guys were carrying trays of these fruity drinks, big old pink things with all kinds of fruit hanging on them. And this woman said, we'd been with her for 5 days. They sat at our table, and she said, take one. And I said, nope. I don't want any of that. And I was enjoying everything just exactly the way it was. And she said, go ahead, you won't even be able to taste the rum in that. And I said, I don't care about tasting the rum or not tasting the rum. I don't want the damn thing, you know. A lot of people have trouble refusing a drink, you know, and I don't have that problem. I can refuse it in a second because I like being sober. This is the best life I've ever had. And I figured that I paid all my dues. I don't want to go back again. I hurt so long. It was just, towards the end of my drinking, I was getting suicidal. You know, towards the end of my drinking, I was living with my mom. I know this is hard for you to believe, but I used to beg my mom to put me in a mental institution. And one day I couldn't take it anymore, and I got a razor blade, and I sawed at my wrists, cut my wrists. Not too deep, you get hurt bad that way. By the time they found out I committed suicide, the blood had dried, you know. It's sort of like I was always a phony bastard, but anyway. I got to see a psychiatrist. My family's poor. The psychiatrist is $50 an hour. And they got their money together. And sisters and brothers and neighbors, they all chipped in and bought me an hour. And I got drunk that morning that I was supposed to see him. I drank a whole bunch of terpene hydrate. And because I was afraid of that man, I thought he'd mess up my thinking. And so they slapped the hell out of me and got me sort of sober and took me to the psychiatrist. I always tell this story. When I'm at these conventions like this, I come here because I cried so long that I love to laugh, you know. And I love to hear you people laugh too. And but this guy here, something, when he was, I don't know when it happened to him, and my mom said, we paid the man, go in there, for God's sake, find out what's wrong with you, you know. And I said, yes, Mom. And so when I went into the room, this guy, something had happened to his back, and he had been given the choice of standing up or sitting down the rest of his life, and he chose standing up. And then they fused his spine. Poor devil was just, that was the way he's going to spend the rest of his days. And no one told me that. And when I went in the room, knocked on the door, he said, come in. I went in. His head was touching the back of a chair, and his feet was touching the floor. And no other part of his body was touching. And he wanted to talk about me. I wanted to talk about him, you know. I couldn't figure out how he was doing that, you know. And I got real worried, too. I knew something was wrong, you know. That stuff that I was using was eating out the inside of my head, but I'd never seen anything like that. It looked like he was a rocket and he was just going to fire right out the window, you know. So, but when I left there, he told me, he said, John, when I get your thinking straightened out, you'll be able to drink like anybody else. And I said, sir, how long is that going to take? I was sort of getting pooped by then. And he said, about 2 years. And I didn't have 2 years left. And you know, I love AA, because AA started like right now. And no one said 2 years, 2 weeks, 2 hours. The day that I sat down in that chair, the day that I decided that my best ideas was killing me, and the day that I decided that although you people were a bunch of lames, you sure were doing better than I was. And so that was the day that it started. And no one said, hey, in 2 weeks you're going to feel great. 2 weeks, this 2 years, 2 hours, nothing. I love AA because it starts right now. The day I sat down in that chair, and I decided that I had to share. I got I didn't get sober. I was, Mom finally kicked me out of the house one day after all I had done for that woman. I couldn't believe it. And I went out on the street. I thought I was tough because I had drank around the world. I've been in Singapore. I've been in Panama City. I've been in all them tough joints. And I wasn't tough. I was a small child. And I found that out. I had the emotional package of a 4-year-old. And I was frightened out of my wits. I got beat up fighting over a bottle of wine, that kind of stuff. And finally I went to jail one morning. And the cop that booked me was my age, maybe, somewhere in his late 20s. And his eyes were steady, and his eyes was clear. Shoes were shined, a beautiful, clean uniform. I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt that was misbuttoned, and something had been spilt on the front of it. I don't remember eating anything, but and I had a high-top tennis shoe on, a low-top tennis shoe. And he said, he's seen my Irish surname, and he said, been celebrating St. Patrick's Day, huh? And I said, yes, sir. And obviously I've been celebrating something. And so anyway, when I seen the judge said, don't be drinking anymore in San Bernardino County, or you're going out to the road camp. And I didn't want to go to the road camp. And so I walked into Los Angeles County. And it was only 3 miles away. And I was thirsty. And besides, I never could quit drinking. And I used to give up candy for Lent. Lent lasts 40 days. 3 days into Lent, I'm eating a Baby Ruth candy bar. So I didn't have the power not to drink. And so that was March the 20th, March the 19th, 1957. And I drank again. And knew I never could quit. I was just hoping some merciful God would put me out of my misery. And then I didn't drink anymore. And I come back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, where would I get the power not to drink? I mean, I was a thirsty rat. And but I didn't drink anymore. I gotta believe, I still believe, that I come in here, these rooms, and I tap the power that you people generate. All you people want to stay sober. All you people want a better way to live. And I come in here and I tap into that. And it seems like if I hear you every day and if I see you every day, I can have some kind of a decent life. And it's been that way. I was, I ended up in a boarding house, AA boarding house. These people took in the guys from prison and alcoholics and really everybody that needed a place. And I stayed there. But I went to meetings every night. And one night when I was living in this boarding house, I was working. My wife had left and taken my baby. And I had a lot to cry about. But one night I laid my head down on the pillow and I slept. And I slept for 8 hours. And I woke in the morning and I said, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. Something had been given me. I could sleep. And I never could sleep before. If you ever use and then you don't use, you know you're never going to sleep again. You know even after you die, you're going to be wide awake for 2 weeks. And so I could sleep, and that was the beginning. And I started getting physically sober. I love physical sobriety, I postponed a lot of meals when I was drinking, and now I'm catching up on them, I definitely been growing on the program. But I got, come back to you beautiful people, and you shared with me. And I sat and listened to you, and you shared some beautiful things. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't work the program. I'd hear a woman, I knew the woman. I went, I sobered up with her. And she had spilled bacon grease on a baby, a little toddler. and she was drunk, and somehow it happened, but the baby was burnt, and they took all of her children away. And I was sitting at a meeting there, and she'd gotten her children back, and tears were in her eyes, and she was so excited about that. She'd stayed sober a year. And I'd hear guys say, I got in touch with my 37-year-old son that I abandoned when he was 3. And tears were in his eyes, or his eyes were excited. Guys would say, I didn't rip off the boss today. You know, and that kind of stuff. I paid my child support today, you know. And I sat there, and you shared with me, and I listened. And then it came to me, and it took a while, but it came to me, you had found a way to live that made you feel good. You were feeling good about the way you were living. And I never felt good. That's why I was always supplementing my life with something. And you had found the way, the spiritual way of living. And so I wanted to be that way. I wanted to be like you. And I stayed and I listened. I spoke at a meeting here in Fullerton at the St. Jude's, and they had divided the room, and I could hear people on the other side of the divider talking. And I asked the secretary, I was at an AA meeting, and I was supposed to speak that night, and I said, so what's happening on the other side of the wall? I can hear people over there. Is it Al-Anon? And he said, no. He said, you won't believe this. They're having a wine tasters convention over there. And being that I used to hang around with a lot of wine tasters, I was intrigued by the thought. I wanted to see what they looked like, and so when it come coffee break time, I went in to look at wine tasters, and you know that every one of them was sitting upright in the chair. Not one of them had their head down on the table. No one had wet their pants. I didn't see one single chokehold. There was the women weren't lighting their cigarettes in the middle. They I didn't hear any of that. I'll kill you, you dirty, you know. And yet they were sharing, and I couldn't hear them what they were sharing, but I could hear them talking. What were they talking about? When they drank the red wine with the white fish? I don't know. You know, I really don't give a damn. But I like the way we share about what's going on inside. And that's where I get my nourishment, is when you people tell me, you know. I get calls where someone's going through a divorce and tells me about it. They say if you can talk about it, you can live with it. And then when I got problems, I tell somebody about it. I don't think there's any other group of people in the world that can do that. I don't think so. Maybe there is. I'm sort of limited in where I go, because I'm always with you people if I possibly can help it. I was sober for 5 years. I knew I was going to be the monk of AA. Oh, and I hate that, you know. The book says that some of us are content doing AA work. We never find our mates. I did not want to be the one content doing AA work. So I went to the Sunday night meeting in Ontario, and I was not speaking, I was just a listener, and it was the Fish and Game Club in Ontario, and they had all these dead deer heads down the wall. And these deer had been shot in the 20s, and the moths had eaten all the fur off of them, and glass eyes hanging out on a string, you know, and the drunks were always putting their cigarettes out on their tongues, you know, and I was standing under one of these dead deer heads looking really sharp one night, and this beautiful, beautiful girl that's with me tonight, she walked by me wearing a tight red sweater. I had a spiritual awakening right away. I wanted what she had and was willing to go to any lengths to get it. Of course, Of course, she says I got her before she'd restored the sanity. But she was fair game. She had a year. And so we started this big romance. She is coffee maker at Azusa, and I volunteered to be assistant coffee maker at Azusa. And I never volunteered for anything. So we started this terrific romance. And my home group, George, come up to me and said, "Hey, meathead, do not get emotionally involved." George was 77. And I bet you when I'm 77, I don't get emotionally involved anymore either. But I was 29, and we didn't get emotionally involved, but she got pregnant. And she come from a Catholic family too, and we got married. And I didn't want to be married. Looked like a real chore to me. She had 2 boys. I couldn't even take care of myself. And she was a beautician, and I was a laborer. And that was 29 years ago. And you know, I didn't think it'd last 10 seconds. In fact, first night we was married. We got married in Las Vegas. There was having a Shriners convention in Las Vegas, and there was no room at the inn. So we slept in her old Plymouth, and you couldn't tell it was a Plymouth. It had hit so many things when she was drinking. I used to call it the rock crusher, you know. The only way you could get inside the thing is with a crowbar. But all the doors had been compressed. But I got back there, right away, my wife had to go on a 12-step call. We just got back from Vegas, and we just got to her apartment. And she said, "I got to go on this 12-step call and watch the boys." The boys were 7 and 6. And she says, I'll be back. So I watched them kids, and they watched me, and she come home, and the minute she got through the door, those kids said, "You can go home now. My mom's here." And them rotten kids. But anyway, they growed up now. And but I did the whole thing with them. I got a chance to do it all. How many people get a chance to do it? I had a chance to be a father, be a provider, be a son to my mama, and to do all that things. I had a chance to clean up all that crap. And I didn't want to do it. I'm not much for doing anything, you know. I think I was married 3 days, and I went to an AA meeting. I said, "I can't take it another second. My wife is a real nut, and I'm not a psychiatrist. I want out." And UAA said, "Hey, you're not going anyplace. You're either at a meeting or go home. You married her, we didn't." And so I'd go home. I bought a little house. The first house I ever owned, I bought a house. And I had neighbors. And I had a yard that I worked on. And I'd go home, and all my clothes would be thrown out on the driveway. And that's embarrassing. And here I'm trying to have some kind of an image, you know. So I'd wait till 5 in the morning to go out and get my duds. And I had a neighbor that always pretended he was doing yard work at night, you know. And I'd be disengaging a pair of jockey shorts out of a rose bush, you know. And he'd say, "How's it going, John?" And said, "Going great, Dick, going great." Just thought I'd hang out a few things to dry, you know. But you know, I stayed, and it was because of you people. You know, my brother died an addict, and he was 32 years old. And I remember he was buried by the union. He had made a lot of money, but all that was left was for the union to bury him. And we went down to Wilmington. He was a sailor too. And I was with my mom, and we went down to look at Jimmy for the last time, say goodbye, and I thought she would break up, you know. I thought she'd be it was her firstborn child. And you know, she didn't. She looked down at my brother and she said, "Jimmy, you don't have to run anymore." And I didn't realize it, that me and Jim had been running and running and running. And he didn't have to run anymore. And I didn't either. And you know, that's one thing you people taught me. I don't have to run. No matter how tough it gets, I get knocked down on my knees. You people dust me off, put me back on my feet, and make me have another go at it. It's been that way. Anyway, I was tapped on the shoulder one morning. I don't want to bore you people completely out of existence, but I was tapped on the shoulder one morning, a Sunday morning meeting, and my little girl had grown up, gotten married, and gotten pregnant, and made me a grandpa. It was Sunday morning. I was at a meeting. They tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Your little girl just made you a grandpa." Same hospital that I'd sobered up in. This time when I went to the hospital, they didn't have to carry me. I was clean. I was sober. I'd shaved. I smelled good. I was with another AA member. I walked in the hospital. I wasn't drunk. I was sober. I was excited about seeing my grandson. And my little girl married a guy named Morales. And I didn't like Morales. I sort of like him now. She's divorcing him. But I got, and she knew I didn't like the guy. And he was born again Christian and everything, and he was always eating all my chow. So anyway, I guess reading that Bible makes you ravenous. But I went in the hospital, and my little girl, she had told me before, she said, "If I have a boy, I'm going to give him an Irish first name." You guessed it. My grandson's name is Timothy Morales. And but anyway, when I seen Timmy, it was one other thing that you people had given me. I did not have the capacity to love. I always felt like I had died inside, like I was dead. I had no feelings for anything. And I know now is because I didn't like myself. And I know now if you don't like yourself, how can you possibly generate any feelings for another human being? And I didn't like anything. I didn't like people. Had no feelings. I did. I used to feel bad about it. I'd say, "Look at that guy crying at a funeral," or "Look at that beautiful look that person has at a church or something." You know, and they'd raise their arms and they'd have a feeling, and I didn't have the feeling. I did. And I thought, "You're so shallow, you know, what's wrong with you?" And then this little grandson comes into my life, and then I realized you people had taught me how to love a little bit. And I love Timmy, and Timmy loves me. When he was 3 years old, he had memorized my phone number. I don't know if that's good in your family, but that's real good in my family. And then he learned how to say "Toys R Us," and he's all the time calling me, you know, "Grandpa, Toys R Us." So, and he's not into yo-yos, you know, he's into Nintendo and everything, $50 a pop. So, but I stayed with him one night, and his sister was being born, and my daughter said, "Daddy, can he stay with you? He's used to sleeping with us." And I said, "I'd love it, you know." And so the little guy was brought over to me, and he was 4 years old, I think. And I was afraid I'd roll over on him. I'm so damn big. And I watched him for a long time, and then finally I fell asleep. And sometime during the night, somebody wet the bed really bad. I got out of bed, and I was soaking wet, you know, and I looked down at Timmy. He looked up at me, you know, and I said, "Timmy, I don't know who done this, you know." it could have been me. Grandpa used to do this all the time, you know. In fact, I used to do it before I got to bed. So anyway, I got everything cleaned up. I'd learned to do that when I was a kid. You get all the sheets in the washer, you get the clothing, all the clothing in the washer, and you get cleaned up and before Mom comes in, you know. And so I did that. I got everything cleaned up, got him showered, me showered, got clean clothes on both of us. I kept thinking, where in the hell did all that water come from? I mean, that kid weighs 25 pounds. There was 50 gallons of water in that bunk, you know. And you know what I think happened? He started it and I finished it. Oh, in fact, I don't think I know, you know, so. But I told him I can't stand wet bunks anymore, Timmy. So tomorrow night is double Pampers for both of us, you know. But, you know, I got 8 grandkids now. I told you my brother Jimmy died at age 32. Never got to see a grandchild, never married. My dad was gone at age 47, never got to see a grandchild. I've been given the privilege of having some life, some longevity, in order to see all these things. And I want to take my grandkids fishing. Might take a while, but if I hear you people every day and if I see you every day, I have that chance, you know. I've always heard that an AA meeting was a celebration of life over death, that it was a celebration of getting well after being sick. I like that. I ripped it off from some guy from New York. But he said some other things too. But I believe that's what we do. Like when we gather in these conventions and roundups and meetings, is that we come together to share and to celebrate, you know, to celebrate life over death, getting well after being sick. And today, you know, I didn't take anything. And most likely tonight, I'll sleep pretty good. And to me, in my life, that's a miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.